to hold your book in your hands now, Mabel?
Sorry everyone, I'm really nervous. Yeah, there's like no, I think, words to describe, which is funny actually, but to describe the feeling of holding this collection, like, I think it's a bit unreal. I honestly haven't, since I got it in like physical form, I haven't even read it because I can't work up the courage to do it just yet. But one day I'll sit down and read it and absorb all of this. For now, it's just nice to see it. It's beautiful.
And writing has clearly, we've heard, been a really intense and very liberating process for you. Can you tell us a little bit about what it has meant to you?
Yeah, I think like I say in the introduction, I was really struggling with a way to like express myself creatively, and just I had all these emotions. I've always been a really, really emotional person. And yeah, I feel lucky to have found writing. As soon as I started, like as soon as I went to Linda's class that first Tuesday, I just didn't stop. Like I was so obsessed with it when I first started. I always had a pen and paper on me, and if I didn't, I was constantly like kind of scrambling to find one, because every single thought that I had just felt like it needed to be written down. And yeah, it feels like I say, like a gift to me to be able to kind of expel my strong emotions from my body and put them onto paper.
Had you kept a journal before, or did you rely on memory to bring out some of just the intense detail that are in these beautiful stories?
No, I never kept a journal. Like I never did any sort of writing until Linda's class, and I was 18 then. But I'm like a serious overthinker, so I constantly like sit up all night and think about every sort of memory that I have in great detail. So it was quite easy to put that on paper for me. Yeah.
In the introduction, you talk about that first piece of creative writing that you produced the day that you found out your father had been a member of the Stolen Generation. I wonder now if we might hear that story that Mabel first wrote, and we welcome Casey again. Thanks, Casey. Mabel, what do you remember now about writing that story then?
I remember that, well, I had to hand in these journals, and I think it was like a couple hours before the journal was due, and I felt like I really needed to write something so I could meet the deadline, and then I felt like I should just try to use one of the clearest memories from my childhood that I have, and really embrace like her 8-year-old Mabel's voice in that piece. And so that's what I did. I just simply wrote exactly how I remember it, and I remember that day so clearly because it absolutely changed my life. And I wrote it in 10 minutes exactly as I remembered it happening, and I never thought that it was good or anything like that, you know. But yeah, like since then I've received so much praise for that piece, and I think it's just because it's so honest and pure thought. Like it's just pure what happened in that moment. And even like we didn't capitalize any of the letters or anything like that, or use proper punctuation and grammar just to keep that 8-year-old voice alive in there.
Yeah. What are the challenges of writing a story that is so personal to you, and also there's a story of your family, knowing that they will read it?
I definitely, when I submitted the journal, I definitely didn't think that anyone besides Linda would ever read it. And then when Mark wanted to publish it, I did feel a little bit bad. Like, I knew that my pop was going to read it, and my parents, but they were very supportive of my writing, and they let me say pretty much anything I want about them, which is really nice. But I don't really see a challenge in being vulnerable like that.
Yeah. And hello again to Mabel's mum and dad, and it's lovely to have you here. And what a special girl she is. In the introduction you said when you first, and Linda made mention of this, when you first were writing stories like Loss of Innocence and others, you didn't think they would be publishable, and you didn't think they would be what people would want from First Nations writers. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that process for you.
I think not so much like Loss of Innocence. I think that is something that people want to see from First Nations writers, but I think a lot of my other writing that I had done, I didn't think fit into this sort of box that I felt like was First Nations writing. Like, I felt like people wanted me to write about politics and trauma and things that have been typically written about, but I wasn't good at writing any of that. And yeah, I was really worried to submit to places because I felt like people wanted a certain thing from me.
Yeah. What did you learn over the process of writing?
I think the more I wrote and the more I let people read my writing, I became more confident that I don't have to fit into like a box, and that like my Indigenous identity is weaved throughout each piece, whether it's brought up or not. Like, I could write about anything, and no matter what, that is writing from a First Nations person. It doesn't have to be political or this huge statement. Like, my identity can't be taken away from me because of what subjects I'm writing about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, how freeing. Was it free?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about the red balloon.
Oh, the red balloon. Well, I don't know, it's just, I think it's like my first memory of feeling guilty, and feeling guilty is like an emotion that I hold really strongly. Like, I think out of all the emotions you can feel, guilt is my number one sort of feeling. Like, I feel guilty about everything all the time. And this is like the red balloon is like my first memory of ever feeling guilty, and I was quite young, and the memory is slightly blurry, but we were in the city, and there was a balloon stand, and I really wanted one, and my mom said no, so I started crying until I got my way, because I felt like it's a balloon and it would only be a couple of dollars. But then my mum pulled out a $10 note and paid for the red balloon, and I just felt consumed with guilt. And so I started crying again because I felt so bad that my mum had paid $10 for a balloon. And that story has haunted me for my whole life. Like, I literally, anytime I feel guilty about anything, it always comes back to that, and I've spent many nights lying awake thinking about my mom paying $10 for my bedroom.